brutal Toronto sports night. I'm glad I had the chance to sleep on all of this, because if we did a pod immediately after the game, we would have all probably had different emotions. Justin, maybe a little bit less for you, but Brandon, I feel like that was tough last night around 10:30. They did lose 6-1 game 5, if you live under a rock, to the Florida Panthers, and game 6 goes in sunrise on Friday evening. I don't know if the time has been set. As of last night, it was still TBD.
I believe it's 8 o'clock.
8
Friday
p.m.
night. Yeah.
Thank you, Brandon. And I will actually go to you. Oh, sorry, Justin. What's up?
You have 10 hours to listen to this pod before game 6.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm glad we have some time for people to listen and like relax. I didn't even want to listen to any interviews or media the minute the game ended, but it's hard to avoid it. So just Brandon, I guess I'll go to you first. We don't even have to talk about how the week's gone. I know we have a lot going on, but it's been a big sports, time. So we want to chat a little bit more about that. So Brandon, just no prompt, just thoughts, I guess, after the final horn, even halfway through the game when the Leafs kind of just blew that one last night.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good point. Halfway through the game, like around the 3-0 mark, Marner has that horrible
after the
turnover.
Marner pass. Yeah, that's what did it for you.
No, not that represents anything in itself. I just mean, like, at that point, it's 3-0. You're halfway through the game. It's not looking like the Leafs can score 4, let alone more than 1 at this point. Like, It was just not a good feeling, not a good viewing experience for me. I did not enjoy watching whatever that was supposed to be from the Toronto Maple Leafs. But I mean, there's a mixture of sad and unfortunate feelings, just very familiar feelings, where this team shows glimpses of hope throughout. Obviously, the regular season, they look great. And in the playoffs, they've shown, periods where they look really, really strong and look like they can take on the world. Mm-hmm. Look like they can do things that people haven't seen in this city in a long time. But when the moments come down to it and it really matters, it seems like these guys just shrink. And it's just one thing that continues to happen. And at this point, I don't see a reason to believe that they can turn it all around on a dime now. I'm excited. I want to watch to see how they respond tomorrow night to what happened in game 5. But I'm not sitting here with the same excitement that I was after game 2. That's for sure. So I think it's one of those things that just comes on when, whether it's the group itself or just the way that situations play out, it's unfortunate to see. You really hoped for something different with some of the changes they've made, but so far, no good there.
No good.
So I just have to ask you. You weren't angry, like you said. You were sad and disappointed, but you weren't angry. You weren't mad.
No, I don't have that kind of emotional response, I guess, to sports like that. I would say I'm disappointed is the key word. I think it's just like, whether you want to say upset, like that's more just maybe frustration and kind of confusion. And again, just disappointment is what it seems to come back to. And I know they're not out of it yet. They still have a chance to come back. Maybe they win in Florida and then bring it home for game 7. And at that point, anything can happen, right? But yeah, I would just say disappointment, not really anger or any kind of malice towards anyone or the team in particular. It's just that feeling of it being kind of ripped away when it's seemingly right there.
Yeah. Like, I'll go to you in a second here, Justin, but it is funny because, like, you expect this game and you expect to see, like, the way that the city feels. I think the way that a lot of fans feel, it's like it's over. And yet you really think about it, like it's game 5 and they've played well. The Leafs have enough early in the series to actually allow themselves to play game 6 and 7. And at least it's clear that you win the next 2 games. There's no gray areas. It's like you win one game and then you win the next game. At least they have one goal in mind. And if I'm not mistaken, the Leafs haven't lost more than 3 straight games in the regular season. So if anything, this season, like, that's a positive to take away. But that's grasping at, like, the littlest straw in the jar. Like, there really is nothing that you can take away from that and feel good about it. Like, I can't think of anything at all. Like, Robertson scores with a minute left. Like, that's That's just, it's whatever. Like, that's great. He won't score next game. He's a scratch and score. So you either take him out and put him in game 7, or,
Yeah.
like it continues. There was just no bite. It's just like almost disrespectful to watch that from a fan perspective, because it's like they just don't care. Like, it's genuinely like they just don't care. They're content with losing. And it's just gone on more and more as the years have gone on. We can do more of a post-mortem on the team if they do lose this series. I think, like, focusing on game 5 is better. We can do all the whole discussion of the team afterwards. But yeah, really upsetting to watch that loss. I probably had more anger. I feel like, Brandon, you have more of an even keel when you look at these kind of things, and like, you've always been a little bit more like, you can keep that emotional response a little bit tamer, which is awesome. I wish I had just as much of that. I was not okay yesterday, but a sleep helps, that for sure. I know, Justin, I'm curious, like, as not really a Leafs fan, but someone who's seen like the excitement from fans in the city, like, how did you feel after that game, just in general?
I felt like everyone was kind of deflated. Like you said, the
Yeah.
series was kind of over. Even though it wasn't over, it's only 3-2. And I will say this: like, we go back and if they lose this series, if they lose tomorrow night to Florida, I think we go back to Game 3, and we've had conversations off pod about this. That's the biggest turning point in this series. Is like, you go to overtime, you can take a 3-0 series lead, or Florida can, crawl back into the series and make it a series at 2-1. And unfortunately for the Leafs, that does happen. And it's not like a great goal that you can't say like, oh crap, like, we could have done something here. To me, that's just a lucky goal that, it's a playoff goal. It's not like the perfect goal. It rides up Morgan Riley's stick and goes into the net. Like, you can't do anything about that, but that's something that changes a series. And that's what we've kind of seen ever since then. The Florida Panthers have kind of like felt like, I don't know if it gave them all the momentum in the world, but it definitely gave them enough momentum to feel good about themselves going into game 4. And then we saw that carry over from game 4 to game 5, where they completely rolled over the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there was anything, like, even Craig Berube said last night, like, they didn't change anything. Like, they just play a simple game and we just didn't answer it. Like, we simply did not show up, and that was unacceptable. But if you're a Leafs fan, like, you got to look at this and say, we're not out of the series yet. We still have one more game, even though it feels like, just going down there for a business trip just to lose and then come back and your season be over. Like, you got to think that they're coming back to play a game 7 on Sunday night. Like, that's the way you got to go into that game thinking.
Sure.
And I mean, if they go down 4-0 even, like, you got to think that they're still coming back. Like, as a fan, like, I'm not talking just like, hockey experts or whatever. Like, as a fan, you can't give up on the team even if they're trailing in game 6. Like, you just can't. Like, you got to have belief in this team until the end, and then afterwards go ahead, say that you didn't believe in them. Sure. But until that final buzzer goes and they prove to you that they can't get it done, just, have belief that even though it's 3-2, they've lost 3 games in a row, they still have the players and talent to come back in this series and force game 7, at the very least.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that everyone's seen this before. And even if they force a game 7 and they play great in game 6, I don't think anybody would go into that game, other than the small momentum that you might gain from winning one game in a playoff series, which at this point, like, I don't know, but we've
You're
seen
also
them
home.
come back from series, deficits. We've seen them come back in games in previous playoffs. Yes, you're right. We would be at home for that game. But look at the home performance after everyone said game 5 was such a pivotal game and they were going to play great because they were coming home after losing 2 in Florida. So while I agree, like, these are all, you're 100% right. It's never over until it's over. I just think people they're finding difficulty in terms of getting up to that level because they've been so heartbroken and so angry after so many disappointments that I think, whether it's fair or not, this team, that's what they've created. And it's really sad to say, but it's one thing where, yeah, like they got to do something that they've never done in order for this to start to move in a different direction. And after 8 different tries and different situations, different teams, like to just think that, yeah, there's still a chance. It's great. It's a great thought, and the team deserves it because we're all fans of the team and we want to see them win. It's just hard to put yourself in that situation only to get hurt again in a game 6 or game 7 or in the, in the next round,
Yeah,
whatever
but
that happens to be.
that's also sports. Like, you're gonna get hurt. There's only one team that's gonna walk away with fans that are happy at the end of the year. Every other fan base is gonna be disappointed, unless your fan base knows going into the season, like, hey, it's probably gonna be a rebuilding year, and then you overachieve. Not to like bring up the Montreal Canadiens, but like as an example, like the Montreal Canadiens, no one expected them to be in the playoffs, let alone, have a good showing in the playoffs. So like in that case, like you have a fan base that, realizes that, hey, we're not at the place where Toronto might be, but like for 30 other fan bases in the NHL, there's going to be a lot of disappointment. Like Vegas goes home last night to Edmonton. I guarantee you their fans are pissed because, they also had a deep team that could have won a Stanley Cup. You go to LA, their fans are pissed because they had a good team that could have won a deep playoff run. Winnipeg fans might be pissed tonight after game 5 if they go down and they lose 4-1 to Dallas. Colorado might be the most pissed of them all because they go all in and they lose in 7 games to the Dallas Stars in what is probably a Stanley Cup final matchup. But what I mean by this is like, even if like the fans or like you guys don't have belief in the team, or you think you're going to get heartbroken again, you still got to believe in them until that actually happens. Like you can't just give up on it until like at this point, or not get up for that game and like expecting like you're just going to get heartbroken again. Cause like, yeah, like that happens. Like everyone gets heartbroken in sports, but like at the very least, sometimes you don't have another game to play. These guys have another game where they can go out and prove that they have a good team. Like they have a chance to win this series still. It's not over.
I think the only downside to that, and I've been on that train the whole playoffs. This is the one year that I felt like I've been able to rationalize each game individually, and I've been the biggest advocate of finally realizing why Leafs fans are so like disliked by the rest of the league, because there's a lot of delusion there, and then on the flip side there's an automatic, you lose one game and everybody comes crashing down, like it's just everything's bad and the Leafs are disaster and blah blah blah. And I felt like that was a bad attitude to have this year, because we've seen this is the biggest proponent of this team might actually be different. And I know that's almost every year that's said, but this is the year that I can separate this and actually believe it. And after game 5, this is the first time the whole season where I would not fault any Leafs fan or media person or player or coach from being like, F this. Like, this is the one time that I think it's valid, because there's so many things that could be said. There's not even words to describe game 5. It was disgusting. Like it was like you literally don't care. And I think it was a legacy defining game. JD Bunkus was on this, and I really agree with him. Like, they had the chance. This was the game, and it's not over. It's definitely not over, and that's exciting. But like Brandon, you were saying, like, who's to say that this is any different game 6 when you're playing the Stanley Cup champions of all that? We haven't even really touched on that, and you're expected to win 2 straight. They've done it, but I just don't see how they're able to get off the mat after that. And Dave put in our chat just quickly, Craig Berube, I think, commented today and said, a loss is a loss. If we would have lost 2-1 and it was a close game, would it really matter today? We got beat. And I guess that's in a vacuum true, but it's like, oh, Craig, like, you've been here 1 year, Craig. Like, you just don't know the demons that have been here. I'm curious, Brandon, if you have a thought on that, though.
The only thought I have on that, I think that's a really good quote. And I think on any other team, and that's why, Justin, like, your points are valid, but no other team is as
Yeah, I get where you're going with this.
has
I agree.
struggled.
I
Like
agree.
the most of the teams you mentioned have won either Stanley Cups in the last 5 or 10 years. If
It's a
the
good
Leafs had
point.
done that, I don't think anybody would be up in arms in a Game 5 situation. Like people would understand that's where the situation is. You can't win every year. You made very valid points, but to be a fan of the Leafs is to be heartbroken. There's not a single Leafs fan who's under the age of, I guess, what are we at, 60, almost 60 years now, where they've
Yeah.
seen that level of success. And to just believe that they can still do it, I think is valid. And I think nobody is giving up saying they're not going to watch Game 6 or they don't think that this team could hypothetically come back and win the series. I just think people are so down on it and have been beaten down so many times that they are expecting them to now fold and lose this series. And I think it's better in some cases it's better to be expecting the worst and be surprised than it is for you to be the one
Totally.
to be disappointed and to go into everything with your best foot forward or whatever cliche you want to use. But I know there's millions probably of Leaf fans that are still going to be cheering them on tomorrow and are still going to be excited, but they're just going to have that feeling in their heart probably that they've seen this before and that they're expecting, disappointment. And I think that's fair either way you look at it. But I think if the Leafs had lost yesterday 6-5, I think we feel a lot differently. Not necessarily if it's 2-1, because if they could score and look like they were able to break through a little bit, that would give people a lot more hope than if they just lose 2-1 and it's Nick Robertson who's scoring the goal. I think that's what's to the point now where people are expecting nobody. Matthews, Marner, even Tavares is kind of, I think, showed that whether he's getting a little bit tired or he's just showing his age a little bit, like he's kind of disappeared later on in the series for me. Nylander's still been pretty consistent throughout, but yeah, like who's gonna if we had 2 or 3 points from those 3 guys last night, Matthews, Marner, and Tavares, you feel a lot better regardless of the result. But I think the way
agree.
everything has worked out, it's just hard to feel that way right now.
And I agree. I before we move off the Leafs, I just have like one last thing. You mentioned legacy game, and I wrote this on Twitter last night, so I just want to remember it word for word. Is every single year we get to this point in like a Leaf season where, especially in like this core, where like we get to the point of the legacy game. I've never actually believed that there was a legacy game on the line for this team. In the media up to this point, every single year, like I'm not going to say the first 2 years of this core, but like the last 5 years of this core, it's been legacy driven games, and that's all they've been talking about. And you can't keep on using the same thing every single year, but it's you can't keep on repeating it because you've already said that it's a legacy game, so it's already decided what their legacy is. I personally think this is the first legacy game, and it will define the Leafs core and this entire edition of the Toronto Maple Leafs going forward on tomorrow night, starting with tomorrow night and followed up by Sunday if they win. If they lose tomorrow night, this is it. Like that is it. How do you guys feel in terms of that? Like is this the legacy game? Like game 6, I know that you guys might say there was legacy games in the past. I don't agree with that one bit. This to me is their one chance. You changed the coach. You made all the moves at the deadline. You brought in Chris Tanev last year. You brought in Brandon Carlo. You brought in Scott Laughton. You brought in Anthony Stolarz. You did everything. This is the year that I feel the legacy game means the most. How do you guys feel?
The only thing is I do just like I get your point, and this year's different for one reason, but I still do think that in the past there was legacy games, and the reason is because we didn't know if it would be the last game of, let's say, the core 4, and that's why the legacy games were the way that they were stated. But we've continued to see the same core 4, so those legacy games basically just got pushed ahead, like 100 yards, i.e. 1 year. But this is the first year where there's actually a possibility of changing because of the contract situation of Mitch Marner. Last year, I was like, I was the first one to say, like, this can't continue. And it just kept pushing. You're changing the coach, you're changing the decor, you're changing all of this. But this is the first time you can actually change the core. And like, Mitch Marner will not be a Leaf if they lose this series. Like, I don't care if he has 2 hat tricks the next 2 games. and they lose. You didn't win the series. And I know that's a crazy thing to say, but you can't just, it's like procrastinating on a group project. Like, okay, we're going to go ahead and finish and we're going to do it in the last hour and hope for the best. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. If they win the series, things change, but that's all Toronto cares about right now. And unfortunately, I don't want to put the whole blame on him. We can talk about that when the series comes to an end either way. But unfortunately, that's the way it is. So I feel like this is a legacy game for that reason. And it's going to be a huge conversation one way or the other, depending how it plays out. I don't know what you think, Brandon.
Yeah, I think it's only a legacy game if something changes. And whether that's Mitch Marner, Brendan Shanahan, if they do lose this game or this series, and one or both of those names that I mentioned, there are others that could depart as well. If they're not here, like people will look back at this game and this series, especially if it doesn't end, favorably. They'll look at this as a microcosm. The Leafs had hope again, up 2-0 in the series, looking good, and then a bounce. You can say a bounce or whatever happens in game 3. They can't get it done in a moment that would have shifted the series completely. And now they've fallen back into old habits. They've looked uninspired. They've looked uninvolved. So I think it will be a good view kind of where this core has been the last last almost decade now. So like I agree, it's a huge game, and it really does. I think it could be what defines this group and could be what directs the future of it as well.
But
I like, if we want to wait until after the series to talk about Austin Matthews, we can.
I think so.
He's got a 20-minute conversation booked in, like at least 20 minutes of just talking about him and whether or not he is the most disappointing player on this team at this point. Like, it's not Mitch Marner, in my opinion, it's him. He's got at least 20 minutes booked in for just himself right now on this podcast.
There'll be a lot. Like, we could do a whole pod just on them, I think, if we really wanted to.
And I think it will be it'd be helpful to, if they do lose and we are having that kind of conversation next week, I think finding out about his health status and what's going on there, I think will be huge in defining what that conversation looks like.
Do you think they'll even say it, though? Do you think they'll
even
say it?
Yes, I think they will. I think
they didn't say it during the season. They didn't.
No, but that's because in the past, that's what the whole thing. Matthews has been. He's developed some sort of thick skin where he feels like he has been targeted in the past for saying certain injuries, and especially in the playoffs, it would be a risk to say specifically what it was. So,
not in the playoffs, but I meant at the October, November, whenever this first thing happened, I was shocked that they didn't say what the actual issue is.
No, that's again, it just goes back to his past experiences dealing with injuries. This is the way that he specifically wants things to be handled. When it comes to injuries, it's not about playoffs or regular season. That's just if he can, he'll hide it now because he thinks it's a disadvantage, I guess, for everyone else
for other
to know.
Teams to know.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll see how Game 6 plays out. You'll be listening to this, and if you were listening to it, it'll be happening the evening of. We're recording this Thursday, but you'll have. You know what? We'll leave on a positive note. Leafs in 7, okay? If you're a Leafs fan listening, Leafs in 7. I don't know if I believe it, but we'll be confident. Whatever.